Ladies and gentlemen, this has turned out to be one of the craziest World Chess Championship matches ever. And today's game exceeded all expectations. It truly is unbelievable. I I have no words to describe my emotions. This is such a thriller. And yeah, I don't know what will happen next. Let me show you this game. This is a fascinating one. Even though it may be not the best in terms of quality of moves, in terms of plot twists, in terms of how the drama unfolds, this is one of the best. Okay, let me show it to you. So Dean is playing with the white pieces and he has to get that win. Yesterday he said at the press conference after losing the game to Gukesh brutally, after a blunder, he said, well, I used to be in the same position against Jan Nepomniachtchi, Nepo, and I came back in the next game with the white pieces, so I'll try to do that as well. That's what he said yesterday. Let's see if he managed to do that or not. So c4, the English opening, one of the weapons that Dean often uses, and we have a similar position that we had yesterday, but now it's Dean who's playing with the white pieces. Yesterday we had a position where white went b4 and e3, some kind of a reversed Blumenfeld gambit. An exciting game unfolded. This time we don't have any gambits. We have Neo-Catalan, so-called, the Neo-Catalan defense. e3 also follows here, trying to do something about this pawn because it's an advanced pawn, it's restricting white, so very logical to try and trade it. There is a move e5 here that's perfectly normal for black, but Gukesh went for bishop e7, maybe a less principled approach. I've been watching a stream in Russian with Jan Nepomniachtchi commentating the game on the Levitov Chess channel, and Jan said something along the lines that this is like a typical Gukesh move, just to escape the realms of theory, because obviously the most principled move is e5 here for black and bishop e7. Maybe is the move that Dean did not spend so much time on preparing. And yeah, Dean spent 7 minutes on d3, so he probably was calculating this. Takes, and takes is perfectly fine for black. This queen is very safe here. There's no need to take. Jan, for example, suggested b3, Nepo, and said that this is like a decent position, bishop b2, d4. So white has a slight advantage, very pleasant to play for a win. So this is why bishop e7, followed by d3. Is also a decent try, but e takes d4 was better. So the engine slightly prefers taking, and Jan Nepomniachtchi also said that taking probably was better, but still the position is full of play, full of life here. Now black decides to take, and you can take by the pawn, you can take by the bishop. Both are legitimate tries, but taking by the bishop is a little bit stronger probably because you don't weaken your king. If you take by the pawn, you weaken your king, and you have weaknesses. So you have this diagonal that potentially is going to be weak. This pawn is backwards. And bishop e3 helps white develop. Now white wants to go d4. So e5 prevents that. Knight c3. Now finally, there is no longer a pawn on d4, so the knight can jump to c3. That was the plan of trading this pawn. Castles, all normal. Rook e1, taking the file. h6. This is the move that's been criticized by some commentators. I've watched several streams in English and in Russian. h6 is not a bad move per se, and the idea probably is that Gukesh wants to put the bishop on e6, but this would probably be a little bit uncomfortable after knight g5, attacking this bishop. So it's very common in very many openings to go h6 to enable bishop e6 to prevent knight g5 jump, but it's slow and it creates some weaknesses, some holes potentially on the light squares here. So such moves should be made with caution, and it's not the best move. Actually, the engine is not afraid and says bishop e6 is okay. What if knight g5, you might ask? Well, just bishop f5. This knight is not nothing too special, and the bishop is putting pressure on d3 pawn. So yeah, but Gukesh is not the engine. Gukesh wanted to tread lightly here and went h6, a3. White potentially wants to go b4, b5. This bishop, light squared bishop, is very annoying here. If you remember the previous game, Dean was on the receiving end of that very same bishop that decided the game. So here he wants to show how it is done with the white pieces. A5. A5 is objectively one of the best moves, but some commentators were hesitant to suggest it because now there is a hole on b5. Pawns don't go backwards. If, for example, pawn is on a7, if white goes knight b5, it can be kicked by a6. Now a5, while serving the purpose of preventing b4, because it will take, doesn't serve the purpose of defending this square, and this square is a hole in black's position, and now white will exploit it later on. Spoiler alert. So, okay, h3. White is not Russian, even though the engine suggests d4. Here, I was watching the Nepo stream, and he said d4, while being the first line of the engine, objectively, probably subjectively is not the best move, because black has very obvious play. Black can trade everything, and then go c6 to blunt this bishop. And, well, the position has simplified a little bit. Yes, white has some advantage, but nothing too crazy. Even though the engine finds a way to press after knight a4, trying to infiltrate over there, but it's plus 0.2, plus 0.4 on various depths. So there is an advantage, but it's easier to play practically. So Nepo praised what Din chose. Instead of going d4 immediately, patiently waiting h3. In line with the like Sun Tzu type of Chinese stratagems, like you have to be patient when you are at war. So this is what white is doing. Patiently waiting. Gukesh is under a lot of pressure. His position is not ideal. He probably already doesn't know the exact plan that he should implement. He doesn't know the engine lines, of course. So we just play a game. This is what white should do here. And it's not very pleasant to play here with black because black doesn't have a very active plan here. So black just makes some developing moves and waits for white to do something. So bishop e6 finally, the move that is now available because of h6. King h2, another waiting move very patiently. The only criticism Din has received up to that point is the fact that he has spent an hour on the clock. If you see the clock, by move 11, he already spent an hour on the clock. So a little bit probably nerves, probably this was calculated strategy that the first 10 moves are the most important to get a game in such a crucial situation, because this is like 3 games left and he has to strike, and he probably has to strike with white, because if this game is a draw, then in the next game Gukesh will be able with the white pieces to dry the position out to create no chances. So this is a chance. So probably this is why Din spent so much time. But you shouldn't do it. If you are not Din Liren, you should not do this. You should play faster. You should use your time when you most need it, in the middle game, not in the opening. So okay, King h2, patiently waiting, Rook b8. This is a move that's been criticized by some commentators, and the engine also doesn't like it. While serving the practical purpose of defending b7 from this very dangerous bishop, it's too slow. The engine prefers Rook a8, developing, overprotecting this pawn. It will be a useful move in future, trust me, you will see. But instead, Rook b8, yeah, potentially it may be useful, but it's not that useful. You will see in future why it wasn't that useful. So Queen c2, finishing development, Rook a8 now, Knight b5. Knight b5, this is the hole that I've been talking about. Bishop f5 puts pressure on this pawn. Rook d1 defends it. Knight d7, trying to rotate the knight. Well, black doesn't have too much space. White has more space and more squares controlled by white's pieces potentially, and the rooks are more active potentially after d4. So white's position is a little bit more pleasant. Black has to maneuver to find some chances for black. Queen d2. Wasting another tempi with the queen to escape the spin, to go d4, to break open in the center. When you have an advantage and you have a lead in development, you should strike in the center. A very, very sensible rule that every Soviet chess player should know. And Din Liren is from China, but he knows his classics. Bishop g6. Not the best move, but he's sidestepping potentially like probably g4 ideas, even though It's not the obvious choice, but sometimes it may be a good move. Sometimes maybe e4 will follow, and if takes, then the bishop will not hand. There may be some subtleties that I don't understand why Gukesh made this move, because I'm not 2783 rated player, so yeah, who am I to judge? d4. Obvious move, obvious plan. Now Liren is close to +1. His position is great because Gukesh has wasted a lot of time moving the pieces back and forth, moving the knights back and forth, moving the rook, moving the bishop, and the pieces of Gukesh do not have too many squares. And if black takes, then bishop f4 is very strong, and it's already losing for black. This pawn will fall next, but just look at the position. The position speaks for itself. So taking is bad. Of course, Gukesh sees it and goes e4. By the way, here's the moment in time when Gukesh has fallen behind on the clock, because he realizes his position is bad and he has to do something. Knight g1, a great move, but a very logical one. Where else can you go? Knight h4, you'll get taken. Knight e5, you'll get taken. So knight g1 is the only move, but it's a great move because the knight will rotate over here and it will be a great piece, and this pawn will be a liability. Let's see. Knight b6, trying to activate the pieces a little bit, maneuver the knight. Queen c3. Queen c3 serves several purposes, but first of all, it protects this pawn from the knight. Bishop f6, pinning this pawn, because white obviously wants to go d5 to push in the center further, open it up. As I already said, the rule, you should remember it. Okay, queen c2. Now again, the queen wastes a tempo, sidestepping another pin, and now preparing d5. And black's position is really shady. So here, by the way, knight e2 would be even better, the engine says, to put the knight on f4, but this is the plan that Dean used a little bit later. So queen c2 is also perfectly normal, retains the advantage, wants to go d5. White wants to go d5. Black goes a4, trying to perhaps put the knight over here, but at least to have some play in the position, because black cannot have any like resources without pushing pawns, creating some pawn breaks maybe. So a4 is logical. Knight e2, slowly. Again, another rule very useful for players of all levels. Whenever in doubt, develop your knights. After the opening, if you see that your knight is not ideally placed, spend a couple of tempi developing your knight to optimal squares. Here, the optimal square could be this square, for example, or maybe some other square you will see later on. So black goes bishop g5. Black doesn't really understand what to do here, and I'm not like sounding like I would understand what to do. It's very difficult to understand what to do here. The engine says that knight e7 is a move, but it's not too obvious why it should be the move. Maybe rotating over here, but I don't know. Knight a5 is another move suggested by the engine to put the knight there, but what then? What's the plan? Definitely Gukesh was considering this move, but yeah, this pawn is hanging, but you can push at c5, and white is still very much better. So Gukesh decided to do something more active, maybe prepare f5, f4, some pawn breaks I was speaking about. Maybe trade off this bishop that's serving an important role potentially of attacking like this. But Gukesh says, Dean says no, knight f4. Now his knight has galloped beautifully from f3 to g1, retreating. You should take one step back to move forward, and then like again Chinese philosophy, guys, for you on the chessboard. So knight on f4 is beautifully positioned. If it takes this bishop, then this pawn will fall. So black has to trade the dark squared bishop for the knight, but now this dark squared bishop is a monster, and c7 is about to fall. If you go rook c8, which is very logical, you can go d5, for example, and the position just crumbles for black. So black here goes rook c8 still, but before going d5, then just sidesteps another pin, another tempo wasted, but it's not worsening anything. Still d5 is coming. Knight b8 tries to sidestep d5 so that the knight doesn't have to move after it, but still d5, and the position is fantastic for white. But there is a problem. There is a mutual time trouble. Liren has 14 minutes, whereas Gukesh D has close to 8 minutes to make 15 moves each. 15 moves. So Dean has less than a minute per move. Gukesh has less than like around half a minute per move, because there's no increment until move 40. So craziness is about to unfold, guys. Stay tuned, fasten your seatbelts. Queen d7, trying to probably develop like this, or I don't know what black's idea is, but d6 again. White has a huge lead in development. The pieces are much better placed for white than for black. So what should you do? You should strike in the center. You should open up the center. c5, black doesn't want to open up the center, because if black takes, of course, black loses to a fork. So c5 is practically forced, but black's position is already close to losing if white plays precisely. Liren doesn't always play precisely in this match, so will he do it this time? Knight c7, jumping in, attacking the rook on e8. So the rook is attacked, it has to move. But the engine says f5 is better, you should sacrifice this rook, the opposition is so horrible, but humanly speaking, of course, you don't want to give up the rook, you go rook f8, Gukesh goes rook f8. Now, bishop takes e4. Dean spent 3 minutes on this move, he was calculating probably other moves. The engine says b4 is crushing, for example, and if you take, then c5 is coming, maybe Dean was considering this. But taking a pawn is never a mistake. When in doubt, take a pawn. The problem is that now Dean has just 8.5 minutes, and Gukesh has 7.5. So this is going to be a crazy time trouble. Knight c6, trying to put the knight on d4. This is a great square for a knight. Whenever in doubt, you should activate your knight. Bishop g2, just retreating, because now rook e7 will be a threat if the knight leaves the defense of the e7 square. Rook d8, trying to put more pressure here. Maybe the queen will go to c8 if attacked. Knight d5. Now the knight has served its purpose on c7. Now this is a great square for the knight. The knight is about to jump here. If black takes, white will take, and this will be a pawn fork. So very, very dangerous. So black has to take this knight. But now white takes with the pawn, and these pawns, they are doubled, but they are very, very dangerous. Very strong pawns, both defended by very strong bishops. 2 bishops advantage. 2 doubled pawns in the center of the board that are both passed pawns, and that are both controlling important squares. Black is completely busted. Black is completely losing. White takes another pawn. White is 2 pawns up. Both players have around 6 minutes to make the remaining 7 moves. What will happen, guys? Rook c8, attacking the queen. Queen drops back. Knight a6. Whenever in doubt, again, players try to develop their knights. On b8, the knight was doing nothing. Maybe it will go here or somewhere else and try to instigate. Rook e7. Now the rook is on the most dangerous rank it could be. Queen b5, d7. The pawns are marching. Now this will be a complete collapse unless the rook either blocks or goes attacking white. If the rook blocks, then there are many ways to move this. Bishop d6, bishop c7 is impossible because of the knight, but bishop e5, bishop d6, many moves. d6 also wins. So instead of passive defense, Gukesh wants to maybe die on his own sword, but not be passive, not die meekly. So he goes rook c4, counter-attacking the queen. The queen drops back. Now rook c2, trying to instigate, maybe take here, then take here, then take here, and checkmate white. Will it happen? Bishop d6. Bishop d6 is a clever move, because now the idea is rook a8, for example. If black does nothing, rook a8 seals the deal, because this rook will be hanging multiple times and white will queen. If black goes knight c7, because this knight is defended by the rook, defending the square, then many things win, including the straightforward queen, and then take the knight, and this is defended, but this is not the best move. Probably better would be take, and then queen. And this rook is hanging, and if you take the queen, I take the rook, and I'm up a rook. So this would be brutal. So instead of knight c7, trying to hold on like this, black does f6, a different idea, and rook takes g7, seals the deal, and Liren wins, because this is a check. If you take, I take with check. If you take, I queen with check, and it's over, mate in 5. So Liren has managed to strike back Against all odds, against all predictions, I was skeptical. I thought he will not like come back after what happened yesterday, but he did. And now the match is again tied, and there are 2 games left. And now the psychological advantage is on Ding's side. And if they draw the remaining 2 games, then the practical advantage is on Ding's side, because he's much stronger in Rapid and Blitz than Gukesh, at least judging by the ratings. And the tie breaks will be played first in Rapid, then in Blitz. If they still are tied after 14 games, they are tied after 12 games. What's your prediction? Write it in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.